I call this meeting to order. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Good. Okay. Thank you, sir. Magic box. Agenda today. Approval. We have minutes from 2 budget sessions and 2 regular meetings. General manager's report. Public comment. Old business. Motion to approve revised resolution M09 Canada search process board elections. 2, motion to approve the change to resolution F02 as proposed by the Budget and Finance Committee. Motion to rescind resolution F05 as proposed by the Budget and Finance Committee. New business, discussion of section 17 turnover agreement. New business, board parliamentarian replacement. Motion to extend terms of 3 members of the Communications Committee. CPI actions and appointments. Media questions and adjournment. Do I have any changes or adjustments to the agenda? Bill.
Yes, sir. I don't understand why the motion to approve and change resolution F02 or F05 is in this agenda. I'm the liaison to that committee, and the committee did not ask me to bring those forward. I got an email back from Mr. Trummel, the bylaws committee, with several different resolutions, including these. I forwarded that to Ms. Supik, who is the new chairman of that committee, and she is going to go over that at a meeting. She wasn't sure she would get it at the next meeting because she was away on vacation when she responded back to me. But I believe that they want to review those before they bring them to us, and I just don't understand why they're on here. I did not bring these forward. I don't know why they're on there, why we are taking these up today, when the committee also wants to have somebody here at each meeting when they do a resolution or bring something forward. They also want to have somebody here to respond to those, what they bring forward.
Yes.
Apparently, Marty.
I can explain.
Yeah.
I can explain. There's a little confusion over who the liaison to that committee is. Marty thinks it's him. He has 3 committees. I have 1. He and I have been working together to shift one of the committees to me. So I've been going to his committee meetings so I can figure out what I want to do. He put them on here. It wasn't anything around you or bypassed you. He thinks he's no, it wasn't a placeholder.
But technically speaking, you're referring to the liaison to bylaws.
Yes.
Not to the Budget and Finance.
Not the Budget and Finance.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm the liaison of Budget and Finance.
Right. Well, this was put on out of bylaws. If you want to take them off, those 2, I don't think I have a problem with
Yeah,
that.
actually, procedurally, those that you go to, just so you know, Jeff, when motions, some of the motions when they get to that point, especially the changes to anything, regulations go to the regulatory group to look at, and then they go back to the committee that technically owns those issues. So they needed to go back to Budget and Finance before they got back here. So we'll drop those.
Mr. Terry.
Yes, sir.
Jim Trommel, I'm the chairman of Budget Bylaws.
Which committee was that, sir?
Bylaws, resolution,
Right.
But let me start at the end with F05. So please go back even further. In September, the then liaison to the Bylaws and Resolutions, Dan Satursky, came to the board up there with you.
Right.
And brought F02, 3, and 5 forward, and to Budget and Finance, the staff, everybody else who was interested. Those resolutions for a regular review for currency and adequacy purpose. a schedule was set up for the board, budget finance staff, and anybody else to look at those resolutions and comments back to the board by October, November, discuss all those comments. December, my committee was to come back what the board had decided. Obviously, we're in March. It happened. That's the background. F05, there are comments, budget finance, comments were to cancel. My committee has no position on that particular resolution. We did do one thing, and that is check with Art Carmine about his past use. And Art responded that whenever there's a raise in
Just so folks in the audience know which one you're talking about, FO5 is the abatement of the annual charge so that any increase in dues does not take effect the first year for that person.
An income-based kind of thing on Maryland Code property taxes. There is input from budget finance and really no input, but input of no input from my committee. Staff input, I don't know, other than the staff responded that it had been used in the past. So that is legitimate before you as a first reading. Now, F03, the Budget Finance Committee had not been able to get to it because of the budget process, and I communicated with the chairman, and she has it as an item to do. I have purposed that. F02 came to the board in a message as a suggested draft. Each of you should, except for the possible exception of the new board member, Mr. Collins, should have received that message. The Bylaws and Resolutions Committee has come back to Budget Finance with our comments. That's the status there. Now, what is up to, I guess, Budget Finance and the board is when you're going to, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
Now,
I'm going to, go ahead, Jim.
One final thing, and I'll.
Sure, no, you're fine.
10 seconds. Our comments to Budget Finance are not really comments that can be made to the resolution, but really more in the sense of question. That's the situation as I understand it, right?
Right, absolutely, and they want a chance to review it. Like I say, she was away on vacation. She wasn't sure that she was going to get a chance to get to it before their next meeting, which is tomorrow. But she's aware of it and does want to have a chance to review it.
F02, in my opinion, is premature right now for consider. You can always consider it. I don't know how many of you have read the draft that you received in several months.
No, I think the correct thing now is to take it off our agenda. Bill, Budget Finance is finished, but I would like to see these on our next meeting, get this wrapped up. FO5, yeah, and then FO3 they're promising. So let's do that. Any other changes to the agenda? Jim, thank you for your.
Just FO9 are taken off. Both of them?
Off.
Okay.
2 and 5 are off. FO9, M9 stays on. Any other changes to the agenda?
Have two advisory applications for Elaine Grady on the communications and Judy Butler on elections that are in our packet.
Anything else?
Yes, Tom, the CPI actions.
Yes.
There's only one in your folder, but I've been in contact with these folks, and I'm doing a little follow-up, so we'd like to hold it until we either can get corrected before next month or bring it back next month. That's okay.
Fair enough with me. As long as they're working with you, I don't need to take action against them. Good. Any other changes? Fair enough. Okay, moving on. The minutes from the February 3rd budget session. Any changes, adjustments, corrections? It's a lot here. I will take a motion to accept.
I motion to accept as written.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? February 4th, budget session. The changes, adjustments, changes, or motion to accept.
Motion to accept.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? February 5th, regular meeting. Again, the changes or adjustments, the motion to accept.
Move to accept.
Okay. Have a
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And lastly, the February 22nd regular meeting. Again, any changes or adjustments or motion to accept.
Move to accept.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Public comment, President's remarks. The only thing I want to reference at this point is the ongoing refocus of all of our efforts to find a non-lethal solution to the geese situation, which has always been the direction that the staff has been working on. The majority of folks involved with this. So we have looking forward to continued work on the part of the Environmental Committee, who has committed themselves to the non-lethal version as well. Got that in Marty yesterday. And Bob, I know your team from the beginning has been. So that concludes my public comments when it comes to the geese situation. General Manager's report. Bob Brown?
Excuse me, can I interrupt?
Sure.
I just want to mention something. We lost one of the members of our community. Pudge Rupert's funeral is actually going on today. That's where Marty is. I was there earlier. He passed away at the age of 64. He was our food and beverage manager at the Yacht Club for many years. So just want to say some kind words about Pudge. He's going to certainly be missed, and he was quite an interesting person. Those of us that knew him did a good job at many times with our events at the Yacht Club. So I just wanted to pass that on to everybody and offer condolences to the family.
Thank you, Shane. Okay, Robert.
Good afternoon. Try that again. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey, come on. Audience participation here. I have a short presentation too. So
Good afternoon, teacher.
All right, two quick updates. We'll do the Yacht Club first. Let me hit the lights. It's really coming along. Very, very excited about it. I'll turn back on in a minute. Downstairs, the water would be to our right. This is downstairs, the covered deck area. This is right above it. You can see the rubberized matting that's down, and then they'll put streamers in, then put the final decking on top of that. So that's actually turning out real well. Looks great. Kind of got a side shot here of the facility. You see the blue roofing, the tin roofing's been going on. Real excited about that. Another angle, this is actually the tiki bar area where they poured the pad already. So again, with the pipes coming up for all the feeds and everything. Inside, this is the second floor, the great room, the big hall where we're going to for banquets and events. Obviously from dock side of it, you're looking at the water side of the building. All the units, and they're tucked in everywhere. It's all divided out. Yeah, it's really, the neat part is we're going to be able to control all this space very efficiently based on the usage, when it's open and when it's not open. Again, we kind of tried to give you a 360 view of the facility. Nothing fun here, but this would be the loading dock area. Inside, this would be the downstairs bar. First layout of it. I know it's downstairs because the ceiling is different. We actually have a vaulted ceiling on the second floor one that's free. This is some of the trim work that's been going in. really, really well done. Very, very impressed with the gentleman doing the work. It looks really nice. There's a bigger picture of the column. So you can see a lot of work is being accomplished, a lot of positives going on right now over there. The only downside we have, if anything, is just weather's killing us for the outside. With that being said, we're still on target for our commitments. We have some events in May, late May. It looks like we're still on target for those. The outside is just the biggest concern. Inside's moving along, kitchen equipment's being delivered and installed. Lot happening right now. Okay, it's got some more fun stuff. We've made an offer and accepted. Chef Tim, our new executive chef, comes from the Bellhaven Country Club. Also has some experience with food service at sporting events. He's worked at Fenway Park, Detroit Convention Center, worked at Oriole Park, Johns Hopkins University. So he has a lot of experience, both some country club experience in Alexandria, as well as more quick and larger scale. So real excited. Great personality. Really think he's a good fit. Paul Suplia, who we all know well, highly recommends him. Knows him well. Really, we're excited to have him. Excited that he's joined the team. All right, let me give you some more yacht club information. All right, I tried to blow them up, Jack, specifically for you.
I appreciate that.
Okay,
Thank you very
this is
much.
the biggest paper I have.
Extremely thoughtful.
This is a copy of the dashboard that we give out. I'm not really going to go into detail over it, but I did make a print of it. We're actually on target with everything right now. It's tight, but we're on target. Numbers are looking pretty good, so we feel very, very good about that. That's kind of the boring kind of details. Okay, well, you guys are kind of soaking that in. I'm giving you some of our latest printed materials for the Yacht Club. For the, this gives you information for some of the catering, weddings, events, those types of things.
Pass those.
Just circulate these. We have more coming, but you all just look at them and just kind of circulate them around. They're kind of neat. Real excited about it. Teresa and Rick did a very good job putting them together. These are what we'll use for sales tools. When we meet with folks, it gives folks what weddings would be, what they look like, some different options that we have, and then the events part of it gives if you want to have another event other than weddings. So it gives us a number of targets, and in the booklets you'll notice under the event one we have all three of our areas focused: yacht, country club, and beach club. Okay? Any questions about any of that?
Great job. Beautiful.
Yeah, excited about those. I very professionally done. A lot of work went into them. A couple of things we did. We had them.
I'm hungry looking at this. The food pictures are really good quality.
Well, guess what? I handed this to Chef Tim and said, "Look, here's what you got to produce." He kind of smiled and said, "Okay."
Okay.
So we're excited about that. All right.
Back on the numbers here about the just to make sure I'm clear on what I'm reading. The right now remaining contingency is rounding up $93,000, right?
Correct. But you see, we have TBDs, we have other things.
Right.
We have.
But as I'm looking at this, the biggest TBD is probably
Correct.
the rest of that is probably.
But again, I'm not doing yes, I'm doing hard numbers on all this.
Yeah, I know.
If I don't have a hard number, I'm not putting it in.
Understood.
Okay. Golf, I just thought I would throw this out there for you. I did we're tracking year-over-year comparisons. You'll notice total book, I'm just picking this up a little bit, 3,725 rounds. So in your slides, but I thought it'd be cool to pick it up for everybody to see. We had, in 2011, the spring of 2011, when I say spring, March, April, May, June, if you remember, that's when BCG just got in with us. We had 2,053 rounds, okay? And then we had to fall off in 12 and 13, obviously with work we were having accomplished. But if you look at how the amount of bookings we have now, 3,037, and that's outside package bookings, another 700 rounds that we booked. So we're at 3,700 rounds compared to 2011. We feel it's a very substantial increase and certainly moving in the right direction from the golf perspective. This is what we said would happen if we stuck to it, we stayed focused on it, we made the repairs to the course. Additionally, I can tell you I've personally met with some of the outside golf companies to talk about our marketing strategy and how they fit in against other courses. So doing a lot of third-party validation of what we're doing in addition to what I'm getting from Casper. Just, again, trying to make sure we're doing our homework and getting all the facts straight on. Okay. All right, before I jump to delinquent assessments, I have some purchase items. And the reason I'm going to jump to this now, I'm going to ask Pete to come up and talk about our delinquent assessment update. Pete Gomsack is our assistant treasurer. He's done it the last couple of years, so I thought it would be appropriate to have him. But knowing that once he gets up, he'll wear you guys out. So I thought I'd ask for money ahead of time. I'm not sure if my strategy's right, but we're going to give it a shot. I'm going to hand you, well, let's start with this one. We had, now all four items that I'm going to ask for today are in the 14-15 budget, but we don't want to wait to come to you until April or May because there's a 60 to 90-day lag time many times when you order vehicles because we get the fleet order price, so they don't have them on stock. You actually place the order and then they come in. So we want to go ahead and get our orders in. We get better pricing as well as get them in for the beginning of the year. One of the things I want to make sure I point out with the first one, I kind of hit you with the biggest one first. We modified, and this one actually has pictures that will make it easier to understand. None of the others have pictures because they're just trucks, but we modified and decided when we approved the drainage crew in with the board budget, we modified what our fleets are going to look like, and we're asking to change one of our 550 dump trucks, and it's on the last two pages, to the utility truck. And it's the same type of truck stuff that you'll notice the bed is different. This is to allow storage of the equipment, the shovels, the tools, the picks, the rigs, where you actually store it in the truck and you have lock boxes to put it in, as opposed to just laying it in the back of the truck. This will also be the truck that we use to pull the sewer unit that we budgeted to blow out the pipes. So it kind of ties together as a package as opposed to just throwing them in the back of a pickup that you have to secure everywhere you go. Okay, so we modified that based on putting that drainage group.
Are you referring to that photo?
I am.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Again, it's just modifying basically the back of the truck from the dump with the salt spreader, which we get for the plowing, to this one, more of a utility truck.
So
They are
on the front
budgeted.
page,
Yes, sir.
sorry, I'm having a little trouble following this. On the first page, we're not doing the dump truck, snow plow, we're doing the utility truck.
No, we have two vehicles
They're
here.
both,
Right, we had two dumps, the
Okay.
same trucks.
we changed one of them to the utility.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, you notice the pricing is over based on today's pricing from when we originally budgeted by $1,826. Now, I'll make it up on the three other ones I'm about to show you because they're actually slightly below, but it ends up being a push altogether.
Why is one of these almost 12 grand here?
You notice the dump on the back of one, the spreader? So I gave pictures. Oh, you mean the bottom bid?
Get them out of bid.
Who knows?
Who knows?
We bid them all the same. We
They were
match
all
them
the
up.
same. Everything was,
Yes, yeah. When you put it out, you give the specs of what you want. They come back with their order. The top one actually lately has been giving us better pricing. If you recall, the one that we usually have got pricing on didn't respond to this bid for some reason. We only do with what we get in, but we did get our 3 bids.
got our 3 bids, right?
And what you're saying from the first bidder, there's 2 vehicles, those are 2 different numbers.
Correct.
Plus the snowplow.
Correct.
Gotcha, okay.
Sorry, I just want to.
No, it's good. No, that's why
And we're
I
replacing-
led with this one.
We're replacing 1 vehicle and getting 1 new, or we're replacing 2 vehicles?
2.
2 vehicles.
And when I say that, Sharon, we're getting 2. We're replacing 1. We're replacing the I want to make sure the 2003 Chevy, the big truck with the broken axle that we've had to fix twice. We're replacing that one. We were going to replace it with another big dump truck. That's what the 125 was. Well, when we looked at our fleet, and this year we've had 5 now snow events where we've done plowing, we found we already have another big dump truck. It's going to be more effective for us to go with the 550, which is what we're recommending. And we're able to get the 2 trucks. We were going to go with 2 smaller plow trucks, dump truck settings. Instead, we changed one to the utility truck, all within the same price range.
So you have others coming that make up for the 1,800.
Yeah, but 1,800 on 125,000. Yes, I do. But you budget back in September, October, and then 6 months later, pricing changes. Yes. Yeah, I have one that's going to be a $5,000 bill.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, but that's different. Yeah, we put it on there just for my note.
But, I mean,
Okay.
Do you need a vote on each one individually, or do you want them as a group?
It's up to you guys. That one's a big ticket because it's 125, so it's a big number. So I can hand them all to you.
Let's do
Okay,
it.
I'll make a motion that we accept the bid number 1 as recommended by the staff
Got a
for the
second?
dump truck, I guess. Snowplow.
Second.
Okay.
2 trucks.
2 trucks.
Any further discussion? Question?
Not seconded.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jeff
Jeff
seconded.
seconded.
Jeff did.
Okay. I have a motion and seconded for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next.
We're having there a brush chipper that it's in the budget. Again, this is the 14-15 budget to be replaced. You see our
Now, let me just make sure we're clear for everybody here. When we're approving this, we're going to order it, but money comes out of next year's budget.
when they're delivered.
When they're delivered is
Correct.
when we write the check.
Correct. So we're just trying to do our timing.
I just want to make sure
Enter
that
this
we're all
year's
clear on what we're
pricing
doing.
and get them ordered in the next 30 days, and then once they finally come in, pay for it, which will be after May 1st.
Okay.
So you're trying to get ahead of them.
Makes sense to me.
This one's under budget by, you see the 3 bids. This one's under budget by $872.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the brush chipper bid as recommended by staff.
Second. Any discussion? We have 3 bids. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Replacement of the truck. You'll notice this one is actually, this is the $5,329 under what the original budgeted item was. So this makes up for that other one.
And 3 bids. Yeah, that new supplier wants our business, that's obvious.
Yeah, we got some aggressive pricing, and that's part of why I accelerated getting it. There's some good pricing on this for whatever reason this time of year, so we're just trying to take advantage of it. And it'll hit next year's budget, so I mean we'll make sure we time it appropriately.
I make a motion that we accept the bid as recommended by staff for the new truck for public works.
Second by Jeff, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, this is the last one for request. This also was budgeted item for 14-15. Replacing 2 fairway mowers. We've actually bid this one twice, and we ended up with pretty much on target. It's $450 below what the final pricing is. We'd like to get these in before this, right as soon as we can, right close to the May 1st time frame. Golf season coming in play.
These are for use just on the golf course or anywhere?
They actually, Sharon, these were.
It's a fairway mower, so I'm assuming just golf.
Yeah, these were the Public Works mowers, but I think they ordered them for Rusty for the golf course, the fairway. That's why they're fairway.
Okay.
Was your question, can they be?
We could use them elsewhere. We typically don't. We typically assign them to a call center. But Public Works does all of our bidding. Now, Rusty from BCG, our golf group, they'll do some bidding as well. But they'll also some of the same type of, like a fairway mower can be used for the ditches down the parkway, those type of things, as well as fields that we have. Those type. Yeah, they have the big cutting blades.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 2 fairway mowers bid for Public Works that is recommended by the staff.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
At this point, I'm going to ask Mr. Gobsack to come up and cover the delinquent assessments. You ready for that?
What do you want? You got some slides up there?
Yeah, they're on the slide. You want to see them?
Bob was going to cover half of it, and I was going to cover half of it, so here I am. No, we had agreed. Did everyone get the delinquent? Okay.
I did.
It came late. An email went out this morning, I believe, saying they were in the box. The objective was to try and get them to you last night, prior to this afternoon's board meeting. The committee only met last week, and this week, 2 things. I have Art Carmine's on vacation, and coming down sick was Dan Meyer, the assessment supervisor. So I was fending for myself, trying to deal with the other members of the committee. Dennis agreed to be here, and indeed he is here this afternoon. So let me cover this as briefly as I can. I do not have the report up on the slides. What is on the slides is some supplemental. Those 3 pages that I had following your committee report, there were 3 slides that I had done. They're independent of the report, but I thought it might be helpful to show those, to show the folks in the audience today those 3 slides. Anyway, as to the committee's review, those of you who are new to the process, it's FO4 that was almost 5 years old now, provided that annually there be convened a committee, and it indicates the members of that committee. It should be the general manager, the assessment supervisor, the controller, the treasurer of the organization, as well as a representative of the Budget and Finance Advisory. This year, Dennis Hudson filled that role, as he has in prior years as well. So Dennis is not new to this process. This process is simply an annual review in accordance with that FO4. And as we say in the opening paragraph or 2 in the report, the administration is responsible for the collection activities throughout the course of the year. Under the board's resolution, this group convenes once a year to review what the process has been the past year, to see how effective it is, to make any recommendations that might result from that to the board with respect to policy. We have some comments and recommendations regarding the process, but no policy recommendations come as a result of our review. Last year's report dealt with, at that time, what was relatively new, and that was the board-passed motion to begin legal action on those accounts $5,000 or more outstanding. And last year's report spoke to that and actually raised a number of questions about its implementation. Subsequently, the board, I believe in this room, debated rather strenuously some of the comments and recommendations and came up with what we thought as a group were some good recommendations regarding the implementation and providing some guidance as to how that should be implemented. As I believe you know, part of that process resulted in categorizing the accounts receivable into two groups for purposes of pursuing legal action, those over $5,000 and those under $5,000. As you may recall also, under the directives of the court, those accounts over $5,000 required an attorney to represent the association, and therefore we would have to incur legal fees in taking court action against those individuals who owed us $5,000 more. Furthermore, the $5,000 that was specified only related to assessments. Assessment amount did not include interest, other charges, lien fees, attorneys, and you can only go back 3 years. So what happened was, and I believe some of you are aware of this, maybe not everyone, there were two test groups, if you will. One was undertaken with the above 5,000, and then another test group was below 5,000. And the committee this year was anxious to hear the results of how that went. And recognizing the committee consists of 3 administrative people and 2 non-administrative people. I was not formally on the committee. I was invited to be part of it as assistant treasurer. But Bill Cordwell as treasurer was part of it, and Dennis Hudson was as representative Budget and Finance Committee was part of it. And then I, as assistant treasurer, invited to be part of it. So we had 3, in effect, staff members and 3 non-staff. The results, as we reviewed them, indicated that and this is all in your report, those over 5,000, the 5 that were selected, 4 were able to be served, didn't have such good results. It did result in 2 dismissals when one person agreed to come up and make a payment plan with the association. And that being the case, and you'll see that more when we get to the under 5,000 amounts, if the individual agrees to enter into a payment arrangement with the association, then in effect that court order, the judgment, is forestalled. It will be reinstated if they fail to live up to the commitment they made. But in this case, the over 5,000 ran into some difficulties, and we ended up with one individual agreeing to a payment plan, and we've collected $400 from that effort. The others, there were various problems with, including the fact that they owed a lot of money to a lot of other people. And we were not looking very good in terms of collecting what we were owed, because they owed one page, 9 different, you've got there, 9 different creditors were filed. So we were not very encouraged with the results of the 5,000 and over group. 5,000 and under was quite different. That, of course, did not require legal counsel to be part of it, therefore no legal fees to be incurred. So the fees to take action in court are relatively modest. It did, of course, take staff time, Ruth Ann Meyer, and, of course, she did consult from time to time with the attorney, but the attorney was not required to represent us in court. But the result of those taking 20 different accounts, and you see it spelled out for you in the report, I believe 14, we actually got 8 and 6, 8 judgments rendered. I'm just trying to remember this off my head. The 8 resulted in court judgments in favor of Ocean Pines. Now, that doesn't do anything except enter something into the court record. You got to go get the money and compete for the money against everybody else who's trying to get their share of the money. I see some knowledgeable people back there because they are respectively the president and treasurer of another homeowners association within the Ocean Pines community. And they know a little bit about the subject. Very frustrating, isn't it? In any event, what we found was very encouraging in the sense that the under 5,000 group, people stepped up and said, whoa, wait a minute, I'll pay you. I'll pay you. And some were able to do that, and they did. And others said, I want to pay you, but I don't have the resources. But how about if we enter into a payment plan? And so in those situations, we're concluding that they did not want the stigma of a court judgment against them. And so we have entered into arrangements with them, and they are so far honoring those arrangements. And we are indeed collecting assessment dollars from those people. One paid it off entirely. Maybe one paid it off entirely. So that was a good thing, I believe. So our committee concluded that what we ought to do is to focus on those under 5,000 amounts. Secondly, those where the court did enter a judgment, they're still gathering, say they being the attorney and staff, gathering information to try and decide how best to pursue collection. Because as I think the women in the back will tell you, it's not easy. And so I think we held off making specific recommendations on that, waiting to see what the consequences were of actions taken with respect to those where they did not enter into a payment plan. The judgment has been rendered in favor of Ocean Pines. Now let's see, in following through with those, what it produces. And once that produces whatever it produces, there will be a basis for conclusion about stepping that test group up to a greater amount. But nonetheless, even without the collection effort, in terms of garnishing pay or trying to go after assets, we have been successful in generating dollars of collections for the association by virtue of, I think, these people being motivated to do it, by virtue of the court action that goes against that. Go ahead and make either pay arrangements or, in one case, pay in full what they owe. So that's that. Recommendations otherwise boil down to a couple of additional things. One has to do with the liens. Yeah, the liens absolutely, as we talked in our meetings, the liens are the most effective tool we have to ultimately collect, and I say ultimately collect, these outstanding assessment dollars and other charges. Over time, and you'll see the stats in a moment, but we continue to experience overall a 98% collection record against our assessment. It may take some time for some of these, but remember, as long as that land, that property is there, and we have a lien against it, and there's value there, we stand a chance of recovering, not all, some of what we're owed. But so the lien process has served the association well over time.
Could you share with the board, you and I had a conversation earlier today about not just the lien process, but the overall environment in which we're trying to function to get this money and the regulatory, just in essence, what are we up against? The rules that are imposed on us as the person trying to get our money.
Sure. The overall environment in which we operate is one where the government, generally, the federal government in particular, wants to protect consumers. And that's why you've seen the legislation that you've seen, both on a federal level and on a state level, that is protective of consumers. In this particular instance, we are, as the association, trying to collect what's due us. We're in the same boat as banks and other financial institutions trying to collect. Everybody knows the foreclosure situation in the United States and the billions of dollars of fines and assessments that have been rendered against some of the larger financial institutions for the way they have handled foreclosure proceedings, robo-signing, whatever it may be. That entire environment, at least in my opinion, has really impacted lots of the smaller financial institutions, point where they were very reluctant to initiate foreclosure proceedings. What we're seeing now is a trend, and this is the thing I observed to Tom. One of the things that we observed this year with respect to Ocean Pines, and you'll see it in the statistics, in the attachment A to that report, there's a far greater number of properties in foreclosure proceedings, primarily those of financial institutions. I believe that that is due to the fact that it's taken a few years for a lot of these financial institutions to figure out what the right course of action is, and as I described it to Tom, crossing their T's and dotting their I's before they go and take the legal action in the foreclosure mode. So what we're seeing now, I believe, with this greater number of foreclosures by financial institutions against our members who also happen to owe us assessments and other charges, they're up, and so I think the financial, now we'll get out of that process whatever result. If they are successful in closing and the property is not underwater, then we ultimately recover, generally, some portion of what we're owed. Historically, we have been recovering when a financial closure is brought by third party, primary lender, that organization, usually a financial institution, higher priority than us. We've generally been recovering about 60% over time. But what we're seeing now is a lesser amount, and I think that's a trend. If you think about decline in property values, reluctance on the part of lending institutions to bring foreclosure proceedings, now that's going forward, one might expect that Ocean Pines would not see the same extent of recovery of what we're owed as we have in the past. But nonetheless, that's a very procedure. By and large, in bankruptcy, we recover nothing. And in fact, in one of the situations where we actually brought court action, it resulted in a bankruptcy. You know, you go after somebody, you force them to take action. Sometimes that action is not what you want them to do. And in the case of a bankruptcy, they declare bankruptcy, we can legally get nothing. And that happened in one case. So, Tom, that's the overall environment, I think, is such that foreclosures are definitely on the increase. And that could be either good or bad. The good part of that, as you and I talked about, if indeed the property is foreclosed on by the lender, primary lender, the holder of the first mortgage, that property will be sold, and lo and behold, someone will buy it and move in and become a full assessment-paying member of our association, replacing someone who has not been able to pay or has not paid for the last several years. So that's a good thing. We may have to write something off in the process, but if we replace that person who hasn't paid their assessment in 3 years with somebody who's going to pay it going forward, that's a good thing. Does that sort of address what you mean?
The only thing I would add to that, Pete, is we talked about whether we would foreclose or not. And there's a huge downside to us being the foreclosing agent. That is, we would have to pay off the bank. Correct?
No.
Well, that was my question.
If the lender has first mortgage on a property, and we are secondary with our homeowner association fee, and there's a foreclosure, the bank does not want to foreclose on the property. They've made a judgment, let's say, that they simply do not at this time want to foreclose on that property. If we, on the other hand, wish to foreclose, we could do that. That's my understanding. However, over the objections of the first mortgage holder, they're happy to have us foreclose if we pay off their debt. But otherwise, we're not in the standing that allows us to bring proceedings first. Bob, want to comment on that?
No, sir.
Neither one of us are lawyers, Bob. But we are relying upon legal advice. And it makes sense. If the bank is reluctant to take action to foreclose on the property because they believe the timing's better served their purposes if they bring it next year.
Pete, the better way to explain it is there's a first lien holder, second lien holder, and a third lien holder.
Mm-hmm.
And they each take precedent. First lien holder takes precedent.
Yep.
If there is no capital left after the foreclosure, second and third position gets zero.
Absolutely
That's
right.
the reality of it.
But what if they choose not to? You're suggesting that if we initiated foreclosure action,
Don't put words in my mouth, Pete.
well, then you explain it.
Explain what? What do you want me to
Never
explain?
mind. Never mind.
If I'm understanding correctly too, the taxes are always paid first before we even get to the first mortgage holder. And there's also expenses for us to file foreclosure.
Before we get
We
to-
looked into this. This
Right.
was
Yeah,
serious.
I just think before we get too far into the weeds here, there was a lot of thought into this process, and you guys were there to assess what changes. So you've got some numbers and maybe some suggested changes
Yeah.
that you want us to make, or we might think about before. Obviously, not going to make the change today. So
We just follow. We don't see at this juncture any reasonable outcome for us initiating foreclosure action when the financial institution holds the first mortgage doesn't wish to do so. So I'll leave it at that. So before I get to the stats and conclusions, liens are good. They're working in our favor. Foreclosures should be only undertaken in specific cases based on specific facts. We had prior to this past year when the board passed the motion that it did with regard to taking legal action, we were relying upon a process whereby we would initiate foreclosure proceedings one group at a time. We would select a group of X accounts and work those because you can't do 300 of them at one time. So we said, let's go in a descending order, dollar amount owed to us, and take them in groups and work those groups and then go on to group 2 and then go on to group 3. And that, frankly, given the environment of decreased property values, properties underwater, lien holders ahead of us, was not producing results. Well, it just wasn't producing results.
This is what I don't understand
Let's
about
go
this
back over
process, Pete. If it is uncollectible, correct? You're suggesting that that particular amount of money is uncollectible. Is that
I'm not suggesting.
well? If
they owe us
if
money,
you keep using the phrase underwater, it seems to me that it's uncollectible. Is that correct?
Underwater
No.
means that the
Absolutely not.
property, the
No,
amount
wait a
due
minute,
is
Sharon. Let me. Yes.
I do not view that as uncollectible.
Why?
It may be uncollectible today, but in the future it might be collectible. That's the key thing. Today, someone may owe the bank 100. Maybe the property's worth now 100. Used to be worth 150, and they got 110 mortgage. Maybe it's worth 100,000 today. But with the increasing values of the properties, maybe in 2 years, and they're continuing to make mortgage payments.
Suppose it doesn't increase in value.
Maybe the mortgage payments will bring it into line with. Each case is going to be on its own, Jack. If they continue to make their regular mortgage payments, the debt's going to go down, correct?
Yes, if they're
Okay.
making principal reductions. Yeah, it'll go
Yes,
down.
okay.
Yeah.
So even if the property, the more likely prospect, I would submit to you that given real estate values generally, not talking about this property or that piece of property, generally speaking, with increasing values in properties, and with the property owner continuing to make timely payments on the mortgage, bringing down the debt, what may be not collectible today, in a year or two could be collectible, and we have a lien on the property. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, do you have a specific timeline in mind? You said 1 or 2 years. Could it be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? I guess what I'm trying to get to is when do you get to a charge-off situation? When,
Well, I can answer that very
when the debt
specifically.
is uncollectible and you have to charge it off? That's
We're
what
not
I'm-
required to charge anything off. We're not a regulated
Well,
bank.
that's right. You're
Okay.
You're absolutely correct.
I know that terminology comes from your background.
I know, but you're right. You're right. We don't
So
have
here's
to.
the deal.
We don't have to charge off.
Let me
anything.
answer the question because it was asked in our committee. When do we charge off accounts? The answer is in 2 situations. Number 1, where there's a bankruptcy been declared and legally we can't collect. Pretty obvious, we write that off. The second instance is only when it's been discharged through a foreclosure process, and even then we don't write it off. In fact, what we do is we turn that over to collection agents. We didn't used to do that, but 2 years ago, we used to, Jack, and everybody else with that. We used to have a policy of once that financial institution foreclosed on the property, and we got our 50%. So say they owed us $6,000 and we got $3,000. We would do nothing else. A couple of years ago, we said, wait a minute, why don't we at least try and get some, because legally we can go after the remaining $3,000 in that, for example. So we initiated, Terry Moore, a process that said, let's go turn that over to a collection agency instead of taking no action. Some action is better than no action. And so we got proposals from several collection agencies, signed a contract with one. I think it's 30% we have to pay if they collect. And it's been a visible failure for a couple of reasons, including the fact that we're limited in how many years you can go back and recover. There's some state law requirement, but by and large, one of our recommendations, as you see in the report, is given the results or lack thereof, we ought to think about changing to a different collection agency. But even there, we haven't charged that off, Jack, because we're hopeful. Now, charge off is just a journal entry.
That's
It
right.
means nothing. You know that. No P&L effect of charging at all. So it's just getting off your books. But why process a journal entry to write account A off if you can still have some hope of recovery? So that's all. All right? But by and large, it's the bankruptcy, where there's discharge of bankruptcy. We absolutely have to. We choose to write no hope of breach of collection. But as long as we have a lien on that property, and it's valid, and that property still exists, given the circumstances and the history that we've experienced as a community, as an association, I would not conclude that we're never going to get any money. In fact, I conclude the opposite. I believe we will collect some amount. Okay. Let's show the, let me just see anything else. No, that's it. That's it. Okay, let's look at the numbers. All right, Mr. General Manager.
Thank you. We're going to quick too.
Go ahead. I can't see it, so.
Our collect, basically right here's the number you're looking
Here it is. By the way, those are the 3 extra sheets you all have. And what this shows is, there are only 3 slides up here, real quick. This is the result, and a lot of people miss this. They say, oh my God, we got $1 million outstanding. How can that possibly be? Well, that $1 million reflects all these years of assessments. So I have shown here, we only have the data where we can pull it apart for 6 years. And so we pulled it apart and said, okay, for 2014, which is the 3rd line down, 12, 13, and 14. I'm trying to get out of your way. I'm trying to get out of your way.
Doing it on purpose. I know.
Well, you got it right there.
I know.
Okay. So far this year we have collected to date through January 96.4% of what was billed. Last year we've collected 97.4% of last year's $8 million in billings. And so far through the January of this year we've collected 97.9% of the billings from 2012. Each year we collect a little bit more on those old outstanding receivables. Now you flip down and I have categorized all 3 years in one line here down the bottom, 2009 to 11, $21,480,000. We have outstanding $167,000. We've written off $115,000. To answer, bring some specifics to the write-off question. We've written off $115,000 of those, left with $21,364,000. We've actually collected $98.7,000. And if you take into account the write-offs, what's available to us, because most of the write-offs are bankruptcy discharges where we can't collect anything more, we've actually collected 99.2% of the dollars that are available to be collected, which is the original billings. Now, that's just assessments only. That's not interest and other charges, okay? So that's where we are. That's why we say in general terms, this organization, by and large, collects 98% ultimately of what it bills. So far this year, with 3 months yet to go, we've collected 96.4%. All right, next. This is the picture of the $1 million that's outstanding. $1,155,000 to be precise. That consists of current year receivables and receivables from prior years. I've depicted the prior years first. So, and contrasted it with the same time last year. So we have, as of January 31st, $1,155,000 owed to us by our members. That includes $500,000 from years
prior to this current fiscal year in assessments. It includes another $319,000, including interest, lien fees, and other charges, legal fees in some cases. Sometimes it's cutting the lawns of people who, whatever it is, $17,000. So we are owed from prior years at this very moment, January 31st, $820,000. Then we add the current year, two components, $295,000 of assessments out of the $8,300,000 we billed, and $40,000 of interest. So the aggregate is $820,000 from prior years, $335,000 from this year, and what the true assessment dollars of that is $500 plus $295, a little less than $800,000. And last year you see a similar picture. Now what happens each year, it grows because you're adding another year of billings and another year of receivables. You don't wipe away the earliest year and replace it with a new year. It's a cumulative thing. Okay, next slide. Last one. This is who owes us the money, and a little thing I did to show who owes how much. Those that owe us over $5,000, and that's all in. That's interest, lien fees, lawyers' fees, the whole bit. We have 95 people who owe us $5,000 or more, and the average is $7,210. Again, it's the old 80-20 rule, by and large. 26% of the 363 people who owe us money owe us 59% of the dollars. And many of those people, they owe us for the year 2 and 3 going back. And so we have the lien on the property, and we keep updating that lien, by the way, to increase its value each time we add to it. Okay? Now look at the under 1,000. I mean, 75 of those 363 owe us less than $1,000. I showed Tom Terry earlier today, I think about 25 accounts that owe us, what, less than $100? Yeah. Yeah. They paid their assessment 3 months late, and we billed them $4.62 of interest. And they said, I'm paying my assessment. I'm not paying you that $4.62 in interest or whatever it is. Thank you, Jack. So that's the picture of where we are. Now, I also updated it through 2/28 because we've had another month go by. We use, as a committee each year, the numbers as of 1/31. But we had the benefit of knowing where we were at 2/28, so I just threw that on there. So, again, the $8,428,000 of billings, we've written off now a few $1,000 more, $11,000, and we've collected some more. So we're now up to $96,500 for the current year, and that's to the end of February. With 2 more months to go, we will have collected within this fiscal year, by the end of the year, something a little shy of 97% probably of the current year assessments. And we'll get more of that next year and the year after. But pure assessments, so far, we've put in the bank 96.5% of what we built. Okay, I think that's it. Any questions?
I'm looking at the next slide, so I won't steal the thunder on that.
What is it? Oh, no, you do it. You do it.
Are you finished? I'll do the fun part, if there's anything fun about it. At our 96.5 or 97%, which is really what our average is, we did some checking around. It's great to say that's our number. How do we compare to others? We checked with some local HOAs what their averages were. Glen Riddle was about 9%. Captain's Cove was about 15%. Man Properties, collectively, their average was about 8% in delinquencies. That compares, although if you compare those numbers, remember we're using 97 or 96.5, so our delinquency is about 3%, trying to compare it to where these are. So we're much better in performance. In addition, we did some searching on the internet, looked at some other areas, and we found 9.6 using city data. HOA Talk was 15% on average. House Logic had a neat breakdown. 65% of HOAs were over 5%, 30% were over 10%, and 5% were over 15% delinquency. So if you compare all the numbers, we're outperforming. Everywhere we checked, we're outperforming everybody with our collection numbers. Okay, so we feel very, very good about our efforts. We have for the last few years. We think the combined effort of applying the liens, potential foreclosure, in addition to taking them to court where we can go after them personally, for all those actions which are not any fun at all, but I think they're a requirement to make sure that we stay at the high collection rate that we have. and that's in the report. Everybody good with collections? Delinquent assessments?
Now, can I say something?
Yes, sir.
Because I wanted to give you a chance to present that as I saw it. First and foremost, I want to thank our members. Secondly, I'd love to have anybody show me a business of any kind anywhere that has the collection rate that we have. You're not going to find one. The collection rate that we have, our members pay their dues, they pay their fines, they pay their fees. We have a phenomenal record here, and I'm going on record, I'm saying it. This is a phenomenal of collection. Are we doing everything we can to go after those who haven't paid? I think at this point the answer to that is yes. We are taking people to court. We are leaning property. We have assessed our process. We have upgraded it. I do think maybe changing collection agency might be a good idea. But from my personal position, I'm very proud of this organization and its members. When you have this kind of payment rate, the story ought to be about the payment rate that we have, and not a minuscule, 3% or something. And this is the economic environment we're in. It's not like we're looking at people that aren't part of our society. We have people who are faced with being out of work for a long time, housing values dropping. This is real life these folks are in, and we're still sitting at 98% over the year's collection. That's phenomenal, and that's all I've got to say at this point. Anybody else want to add it?
Appreciate the committee's efforts. The other thing that we thought was somewhat unique, and Pete, the exact number, because you always have them exact, how many of our members pay ahead of the assessment due date? It's astounding. Go ahead.
It is. It's better than 55%. It's close to 60% of our members pay for bill.
Very phenomenal. I mean, leading to what Tom said, I mean, the majority of our folks go down.
After the bill, sure.
Yeah.
They're not paying a year.
I said before it's due.
That's a big fix.
All right, so it's
Quibble if you must.
It says it speaks well for our community as a whole. So, and I think Ruth Ann and her efforts, if you remember over the last couple of years, we continue to make steps. She's done a phenomenal job with collection efforts, and more importantly, working with our membership who are struggling through some difficult times, working on payment plans, those type of things, which I think make a difference to a lot of people. I know it's the right thing for us.
Yeah, coming from an industry where we have to do collections like that, well, Ruth Ann is just such a valuable asset because that human being who's sitting there communicating with these members, working out plans with them, that makes all the difference.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so some fun stuff. Maryland Recreation and Parks Association. If you recall, last year it was the first year we actually submitted. They have each year where they recognize throughout the state organizations and their efforts and some things they do. We won 2 awards this year for populations less than 50,000. One was for the best website, and one was the best special events publication. Teresa and Sonia will be attending, I think it's April 10th this year. They had their annual conference in Ocean City, so they'll be there to receive their award. But this was the publication. Remember when we did the 45th anniversary last year, and we did a number of events and put it out, we marketed it, and then when we submitted the website, they chose our website. So pretty cool and good work by Teresa and her team on those areas. Really, congratulations.
Good job.
2 years in a row we submitted for different, categories, and we won both times. So pretty neat. Puts us on the map in the right way. So that's kind of fun. Any questions for me? Thought I'd end on a good note. Thank you.
Okay. Public comment. Yes, sir. Name and address.
Yeah, right here.
Right there is fine.
Is it working? No. It's not working?
Hold on. Is mic working?
No, it's not.
What?
Try. Hello. That's all right, I can yell.
Yes, sir, you can. I know we can hear you.
I don't want to brag, Mr. Terry.
Name and address, sir.
Oh, name and address. George Alston, 8 Fairhaven Court. Been here since '94. Mr. Terry, I was in business for myself 40, 50 years. You know how much money I had to try to recover? $643 total. And that was from Canada, which I couldn't get it anyway. So, all right. The reason why I'm up here is, and I'm glad Bob brought up the thing about the golf. I mean, trying to attract outside play. I left something at the offices. I don't know whether you got it or not.
Tell me what it was.
It was that Ocean Pines is not even listed in the Verizon Yellow Pages. It is not listed in the local Yellow Pages. And the Maryland State Golf Network were listed as a private club. And there's 2 other golf websites that were listed as a private club. So nobody's going to try to come here. I don't know who's responsible for this, whether it is Board or whether it's Mr. Casper or whether it's Mr. Thompson. I don't want to get you in trouble about that.
No. It's good, like when you sent that in, because Yellow Pages, it doesn't publish every month.
I understand. It's every year.
Yeah, no, bringing that to our attention, if I don't know where they're not listed, we'll take the corrective action.
But that Maryland State Golf Network,
yeah,
you can have that changed in a heartbeat. Now, because of what Mr. Steen is attempting to do, which might possibly affect my value of my property, which happens to be on a golf course, I did some checking. On the Golf Now network, of which last week Ocean Pines was not even listed, River Run's cost was $30. Eagles Landing was $30, which, by the way, is the number 14 course in the state of Maryland. Lighthouse Sound is $55, and this is for morning. And that's the number 15 course in the state of Maryland. Bay Club is $35. Ocean City Golf is $15, but I think it's a special. Glen Riddle is $40 for War Admiral, which is a super course. Man o' War is $39. Rum Point, which is a super course, that was the architect was Pete Dye. By the way, River Run was I forget. Huh? No, I was thinking who the designer was.
Gary Player.
It was Gary Player, which is very well recognized, of course. Baywood Greens was $40. Baywood Greens is considered the Augusta National of the Eastern Shore. You know what it was for Ocean Pines?
$47.
$57. We're not even competitive, for God's sake. If we're not competitive, we're not going to sell any. Now, yes, is it a good course? Yes. Is it in the same category as Baywood Greens? No. Not even close. Or Eagles Landing, or Lighthouse Sound. Rum Point is also Rum Point was $45 and Nutter's Crossing was $29. Somewhere along the way, when you're in business, you have to sell your product at a competitive price. Otherwise, it ain't going to work. Thank you.
Next. Anybody else? Yep.
need to wonder now why we set this up for each meeting, because never.
Is that the question?
I say never.
Is that the question?
No, that's not the question, Bob.
I was
I'm
just
not speaking to
writing
you,
it
I'm
down.
speaking to the board of directors, of which you're not.
And me, you're looking in this direction, sir.
Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. Board's doing a great job on the assessment, no question. I'm going to compliment everybody involved. Collection rate is stupendous, and as you put it, a positive thing for the entire community as well as the people involved. One question though, Pete mentioned, he's on the phone, he said we get people that say, I'm not paying that $4.62. Do we suspend their voting rights?
Yes, if they're not paid up, they don't vote.
Pardon?
Rule is, if you're not paid up, you don't get the.
Exactly. I just hope we're sticking to our guns, otherwise people are going to say, I'm not paying that $20, that's fine.
There's no reason to understand why we would not follow that rule.
You got to be tough. FO5 assessment abate. I was happy to see that on the agenda today, possible approval, because when it was brought up 3 or 4 years ago, I was one of the only people who spoke out against it. I think it was a mistake then, and I hope the board does remove it from our resolution. I'm not sure why it was taken off, because the Budget and Finance Committee already approved or suggested to the board that it be removed. So I don't know, we've changed the chairman of the committee, but I don't know that we have to.
Obviously, we had a bit of a paper flow issue on that one, and it'll come up next meeting.
Okay, fine, thank you. You've got an item on the agenda for extending terms for 3 members of the communications. Is that for something beyond the normal?
Sharon's going to explain that when we get to that. That's okay.
The only reason I bring it up, right now you go, you're appointed for a 3-year term, and then you get extended for 2, and then extended for 1. Gives you a total of 6 years. If we're going beyond that, the board certainly has the right to extend anybody they want beyond the 6 years. But I would point out, I was in this very room, and you guys were sitting at this end in a little rectangular type table setup when Director Dan Stikursky made member of environmental committee, I believe, Dave Blazer was up for an extension. And Dan Stikursky spoke against giving him an extension beyond the 6 years. And the board voted, many of you, I don't know about many, but a number of you voted in favor of Stikursky's argument that people should not be extended, and you did not extend Dave Blazer. I don't know if there were any other extenuating circumstances. Blazer has been working on committees in this community for a long time. So I think if anything, there needs to be some consistency. Geese problems. You know, hey, you see this headline? No decision yet on geese. No decision yet on geese. Do you think that next week there's going to be a headline that says OPA collects 97% of assessments?
98 over time.
98 over time? You think that's going to be in there?
No, would you
Now
tell me why not?
Now that I brought it up, maybe
It's
it will
good
be.
news.
But yeah, that's right. But, you know, it's typical sensational journalism.
right.
And, hey, everybody does it. It's not knocking the independent of that. But I'm curious about something. As resident concerns pour in, and then it says, after hearing from a substantial number of residents concerned with welfare of the service, curious, did it pour in at the rate of a total of 25, 50, 100, 500, 1,000, 50,000? How did they pour in?
More than one.
62 and a half, Joe. One of them was a 5-year-old.
50, 60.
I say 50 or 60, probably.
50 or 60. Okay. And I know that you guys didn't write this, but from my perspective, I don't see 50 or 60 people complaining about anything that's exactly a deluge of problems. I just hope you go about this in a methodical way. Staff can work with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, whoever's involved, to
do the things they recommend around that pond there to reduce the problem. I agree with you that killing the geese should be the last step.
Which is, by the way, what we've been saying since
Right.
December.
I'm not saying it's a step that we should say we're never, but I believe we should certainly take the steps prior to that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recommend. On golf, the Casper contract, I read it the other day, it's got a provision in there that the Casper is supposed to provide to the OPA through the general manager, I believe, but for the owner, OPA, that's understand, monthly marketing reports. Monthly. And those reports are to indicate to you what marketing has been done on the course, and specifically, what was the impact of it? Were they successful? Were they not successful? Why? Why not? Jack, do you get those reports every month?
No.
You get them? Bill?
Now, when I wouldn't expect
Sharon?
You can go across the board. We don't get
Okay,
it.
you don't
You
get
bet your
it.
point.
Okay. You see, this
Maybe Bob does.
goes to one of the fundamental problems. Whether Bob gets them or not, do you get them, Bob?
Are you addressing me now?
Yes.
Because you weren't before.
I just asked you specifically a question. Do you get those reports?
I do get reports. Now, you say monthly mark for defining what you say. We
So
speak every week about their marketing efforts and where things are going.
Bob, I'm talking about a
I
contract.
answered your question. You don't like my answer. I'm sorry. I gave you the answer.
Bob, I'm talking about a contract. We have this board signed, not you, this board signed a contract with Casper. Contract calls. You should know it. It calls for these monthly reports. And on whether Casper's giving them to OPA through staff or not, in the form and in the context, and whether they contain the information contract calls for, I have no idea. What I have just confirmed is that this board of directors doesn't even see them. And they're supposed to. I think you need to take a closer look at what goes on.
Actually, if you want to get into the details of the contract calls for us to name a representative to represent Ocean Pines in that contract. That person who was named was Bob Thompson. So reports and communications between Casper and Ocean Pines are not to the board of directors. They are to our representative. So if you want to get into the nits and gnats of the detail, I'll be glad to. Because that's
I'm
who we
not
name
going
the
to get
representative.
into the detail right now, but
Okay.
I have a copy of the contract. And
Right.
it does not read exactly the way you say.
Oh, yes, it
And
does.
if you think that contract means that this board of directors should find out what's going
I
on
didn't
with
say
the
that.
reports, then you shouldn't be sitting in that chair.
It's not what I said, and you know.
I'm not going to
that's
debate
not
it
what I
any
said.
further. I'd be
Okay.
happy to sit down with you and we'll look at the contract together.
What?
Fact of the matter is, the board doesn't know what's going on with the marketing.
I
And you're
I
supposed to.
disagree with that. We do know. We ask.
We know.
We,
You don't get the reports. You don't even know if Bob gets the reports. You didn't even know that the reports were supposed to be submitted.
we talk to Bob all the time about stuff. He gives us a report almost every board meeting.
Just the 3 rings.
Anybody else?
It doesn't.
Bill Wentworth, 7 Trinity Place. I have a question that I don't take up much time as the last speaker. My comments are more germane, more important.
You can take all the time you want, Bill. It's okay with me.
Please God, we can talk to you, King Olson. Okay? Just going on. In the last
Animosity here.
Excuse me.
Doing the delinquent information, unfortunately, I was sitting back here in a peanut gallery, really see the screen. But what I could see is that there was a little over 300 properties that were in arrears.
363.
Okay. My question is, that's 363 as I'm now speaking. What was that number last year?
366.
And what was that number the year before?
Don't know that number. It was 366.
No, I just want to know how it's progressing.
It's actually
361 the year before.
It's all in the same range. It's all in the same range.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Am I allowed to?
I'll give you two.
This is just a suggestion. On somebody, George Alston, Acre Haven.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Same person. Hey, and maybe I shouldn't bring this up, but on the Ocean Pines forum, somebody sent in a picture and an ad and a link on how to get rid of geese. And what they are like a outline of a dog on a swivel that goes by the wind, and they have a golf course and football field where they had a goose problem. Put one of these things out, no geese. There's a link. You want me to send that to you?
Sure. I want all suggestions.
I don't know how much it is, or what they cost, but instead of having a real dog, you have one of these, or a couple of these out there, and they taste the
No, I made it very clear. Send it over. If there's ideas out there, we want to look at them. We absolutely do.
Okay, I will do that.
Anybody else?
Before Mr. Olson goes away, I was at the golf course on Friday, and it was $38. It was $35 on Thursday because Friday's considered a weekend. So that golf now is just, somebody's got to get to that. That's not wrong. That's not right.
Yeah, but also too on the Ocean City Golf Getaway website, it's $55 on there.
Yeah, see, I wonder if they're making, if they're doing a bump up, making money for themselves, but we are actually charging 38 on the weekends and 35 on the
Now, way Golf Now works is club course gives them 2 free tee times, so they can charge whatever they want. The club designates how much it is. So that means Casper is not getting the right information in there on the cost. Now, it was $35 for a resident, I believe, last week.
Okay, we're not going to solve that issue here, but I'm glad you brought it to our attention because we clearly do not want information out there when we're charging 38 and then saying 55.
Right. Yeah, there was a group of 20 that came in that just saw us on the website and came in, and they were $38 each on Friday.
Packages are a different story.
Yeah, this wasn't a package. This was 20 guys that just showed up. Yeah.
No. Anybody else?
You get 20 guys?
Okay.
Oh, you play a lot of golf, sir?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Sorry to bring that up.
That's okay. All right. School marm up here is going to call an order here. Okay. Anybody else? Next thing on our agenda is a motion to approve revised resolution M09. This is the second and hopefully final reading of the candidate search process for board elections. This has been through the gauntlet numerous times. Since Marty is not here, I will put it for him to make the motion to approve resolution M09 as reviewed and revised and provided to us in our package. I have a second. Discussion. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, the next thing on our is new business discussion, section 17, turnover agreement. It's got my name next to it, but only because we weren't sure if, Joe, you were going to be able to make it or not. So if you would please take over the discussion of that issue for the board and those. It's the south. The point. Sorry, should have clarified that.
I suspect that I have lived with the point and its turnover longer than most everybody, except maybe Joe and a couple others have even been in Ocean Pines. Section 17 point was developed by Bankers Development LLC, which was David Meinhardt, who was a developer. And when he set out to develop the point, and so there's some of the folks here are residents of the point, it was
just for clarification, Joe, so you know who's here. We have the president of the Homeowners Association down there, Captain Brennan. If you raise your hand, she's here. And the treasurer, Carol Terry, is also here. Two of their board members are here among us today.
Right. So the development of the point started out and everything was fine until the board of directors got into a matter of controversy about whether or not the point would be able to have individual mailbox delivery, unlike anywhere else in Ocean Pines. And the board of directors declined to approve Mr. Meinhardt's declaration of restrictions because it had in it that the members, the residents of the point, would get individual mailbox service. The board took the position that since the rest of Ocean Pines had kiosks, then they thought everybody should be treated the same. That's when I suggest things began to get a little dicey with Mr. Meinhardt, because he did not like the idea that the board would be involved in the plans for his development. Therefore, he unilaterally filed a declaration of restrictions, and literally the recorded declaration of restrictions as they were originally there marked through the approval and consent by the board of directors of Ocean Pines. Now, I hasten to say that there is no question that the point is part of Ocean Pines. The restrictive covenants are enforceable by Ocean Pines and always have been. He did not attempt to have that done away with. Later on, when Glenn Duffy was president, I thought, well, if Meinhardt can unilaterally record his declaration of restrictions, I couldn't get him to do a turnover agreement. So we unilaterally ratified the declaration of restrictions just so that there was no issue about whether or not the folks in the point had the obligation to pay assessments and could enjoy our amenities. In all of the sections, but for the point, there is what we have traditionally called a turnover agreement, by which the developer and Ocean Pines were intended to provide for the method by which the open spaces, the drainage, and the streets became the property of Ocean Pines Association rather than the developer, because the developer, of course, was the person who developed all the amenities. And I didn't bring them because they go all the way back, I think, to 2004, if I'm not mistaken. I have submitted repeatedly the proposed turnover agreement to Mr. Meinhardt's then attorney, who was perfectly willing to have Mr. Meinhardt sign the turnover agreement. I'm not really even sure, because I'm ethically prohibited from talking to somebody's client unless they're in the presence of their lawyer. I'm not even sure why he didn't do it. I have no idea. All I do know is that as we speak, the turnover agreement for Section 17 is not effective because the developer has not signed it. What I did, and again, Tom, I forget, I think you know, 2009, maybe?
2011.
I submitted my proposed turnover agreement to Carrie Nelson, who was then your Director of Public Works, and the reason that I did that was to make sure that with all of the plats and all of the recorded documents of Section 17, that I wasn't leaving anything out. Now, we'll set aside points for each condominium for a moment, but basically what it intended to do was to formalize and finalize the turnover of the open spaces, the stormwater drainage facilities, and the streets in Section 17 to Ocean Pines. Carrie Nelson approved my inventory, if you will, and I'm not sure as we speak that he and I got it all, but we were attempting to. And I then contacted Mr. Meinhardt's attorney yet again and got his consent, the attorney's consent, that if I would represent to Mr. Meinhardt that the association would not seek to impose any cost on him for either the turnover agreement or, I suppose, the facilities themselves, that he would see if he could get him to sign it. And that did not occur. The subsequent circumstances are, to the best of my knowledge, Mr. Meinhardt is now in Southern California, presumably developing property in Southern California. So, at least several months ago, and perhaps longer than that, I came across the potential of resolving the issue, and that is by virtue of the provisions of the agreement that was entered into in 1995 by Ocean Pines LLC, which was the legal entity for what we'll call the Balfour Company, the Villages of Ocean Pines, and Ocean Pines Association, Inc., which is a valid and enforceable agreement. And what it says in pertinent part is that the provisions of this agreement, which was a development plan and roadmap, if you will, to the development of the villages in Ocean Pines, that agreement was binding upon and enforceable by Ocean Pines Association and all successors to Ocean Pines LLC, which is all the subsequent people who develop properties in the villages of Ocean Pines. It is therefore legally possible to ask the Circuit Court for Worcester County to, in a declaratory judgment, determine that the open spaces, the drainage, and the roads be turned over to Ocean Pines. The reason is that way back when Boise Cascade was here, it was determined that Worcester County would act as, for lack of a better word, a referee between the Ocean Pines Association and Boise Cascade with regard to whether or not the roads had been built to adequate standards, county standards, and whether or not the drainage did exist. So when the county, and this agreement mirrors that provision as well, when the county determines that the open spaces, drainage, stormwater management, and roads in Section 17 were complete to the county's satisfaction, the condition precedent was triggered and the turnover could proceed. So, if this board determines that you want to take that route, I suggest to you that it is a fairly simple proposition to acquire that declaratory judgment. But there's a caveat, and that is that, to the best of my knowledge, the roads and open spaces still being owned by Bankers Development and still being subject to unpaid mortgages by Bankers Development, we would be buying possibly property that would be encumbered by the remnants of Mr. Meinhardt's development mortgage. So, when Mr. Terry and I had our conference about 10 days ago, in an effort to see our way forward on this, or at least provide it to the board for your consideration. My suggestion was that if you all authorized me to do so, we can do a couple of things. Number one, we can determine what, if any, liens are against that property, and most importantly, determine whether or not the lien holders would execute partial releases. I can tell you nobody's going to foreclose on the streets and the open space and drainage ditches in Section 14. That's just not going to happen. Nobody wants to do that. Even if they did, it would be ineffective because that's taken over at least by the county in the sense that the county has already put those in roads inventory and there is a public easement on them. It would be akin to somebody trying to foreclose on Route 589 or Route 50 or something like that. Thereafter, if that or those lien holders say that they would release those areas, then we can proceed to acquire the ownership rights in those open spaces and roads in Section 17. I don't think it's an arduous process. I know one thing's for certain, it's not as arduous as it has been trying to get it through by agreement, Mr. Mine. So that's kind of where we are.
Hang on a second. I wanted to give Kathy Brennan a chance to represent the homeowners association down there and your view of the situation.
Well, what I have to say is it was as much of a surprise to us as to anyone that the turnover agreement had not taken place. Mr. Meinhardt, first of all, the bankers, the LL bankers, is under what, forfeit?
Yeah,
forfeiture.
it's forfeited because he failed to file the requirements with the state.
Which brings up.
Well, but that's not a huge problem.
Right. And so trying to get Point Homeowners Association had tried many times to get Mr. Meinhardt to sign an agreement where he would do that turnover agreement. And at one point, we did get a phone call from him, but he refused to sign over and turnover agreement. And we should wait a year or so. And it's just not acceptable. I implore this board. I think we have an attorney, Pete Cosby, that has agreed to work with Joe and to get it turned over. This is something that's been up in the air for a long time, and we need to take care of it. Do the turnover agreement. We have an interest in how that turnover is done, and I'm sure we can work. It's nothing big. Just, we want to make sure that we have the lights for the pond, things like that. It's no other big deal. We'll take full responsibility for those. There is a slight hiccup with Point's Reach, but I think we can deal with that. So I implore the board and the community to move forward with this so that we can fully be a part of Chicago.
And let me say, apropos of that, and Tom and I have discussed this as well, and perhaps Bob and I. Ocean Pines has made arrangements with other sections, such as Colonial Village, such as the park, where those individual sections have their own particular amenities, such as the lights and pond and all that. And that was that Ocean Pines reaches an agreement with those homeowners associations that those amenities which are above the function requirements of a stormwater management pond or street lights or anything like that would not be the responsibility of Ocean Pines. That's the section homeowners association. We did it with the park. We did it with Colonial Village. So it's not unprecedented to have that kind of agreement. And therefore, it's very appropriate.
At the risk of looking like playing favorites, I do want to recognize some rather substantial amount of work Carol Terry did in pulling together all these plats and finding all these documents and working with us to understand just exactly where.
Right.
And I second that wholeheartedly. If anybody has ever gone down to Snow Hill and try and get these copies flat so that you can read them, Carol and I went down. Carol went down twice. I went first time with her. The dinosaur machine and way it's set up is unbelievable. So we now have 2 full sets.
Call me next time. We got it online.
Yeah, but you can't read it. That's the problem.
Well, that's true.
You can't read them.
Yeah, I put mine out around here.
Well, it was $2 versus $6 to pay. So.
But you're right. It's a bear.
Yes.
You all are correct.
Well, the issue for us in front of this board is I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of discussions that have been going on, especially intensely over the last 10 days, to really clarify where we are in that. And for the record, I'm just fine not having my own mailbox, just sure everybody's doing that. It's fine with that. But I would like to have this board motion to allow Joe to move forward to find out about where we stand with this land, names, that kind of activity, to do that work. Blessing.
Question.
Yes.
Joe, you mentioned earlier about Points Reach condos.
Yes, ma'am.
That building that's there, that is not part of this turnover.
Yeah.
That is a whole separate parcel.
Nor is the difference is, and I don't want to get into a whole lot of detail. Points Reach has its own condominium common area, as any condominium does. There's probably some drainage circumstances in there, but that's kind of an adjunct. And the turnover agreement would not be involved in Phase 4, which is the area kind of between the back of the clubhouse, quote unquote, and Turtle Creek, nor does it include the clubhouse or anything like that. It includes,
imagine there's
right.
some liens on that building.
It would not include that. And our best effort at the turnover inventory, if you will, did not include that, even though we apparently done some stuff.
The only piece
it was all Carrie's fault.
Yeah, it's all Carrie's fault. So any other question?
Yeah. In deference to the Terrys who put a lot of work into this project and the nice lady who also went down to Snow Hill and did a lot of investigation. So this is no reflection on an ultimate decision or, my viewpoint of this. I just want to flesh out this whole process. What is there a downside by doing nothing?
Well, the downside is that the ownership of the streets and the open spaces and the outlots, when I go to the State Department of Assessments and Taxation and look at their accounts, they're in the name of Bankers Development, LLC. And therefore it's in limbo. Now, they are all, I hasten to say, they are not danger of being in tax sales. That was a concern, I know, because they have a zero assessment, so therefore they're not taxed. But they are all separate categorized accounts with the Worcester County Supervisor of Assessments Office showing that it's the name of Bankers Development, LLC. So if someone, for argument's sake, were to get in the position of Bankers Development, LLC and try and reformat, I don't know, a Phase 4 or anything like that, then they could have an indicia of ownership of the streets that are maintained by Ocean Pines and in the county roads inventory. So it is more I suppose, a preemptive avoidance of any future problems than anything that's really come up that is, hugely detrimental at this point in time. Although it's an incomplete thing, Jack. It's the only one in Ocean Pines that has never been turned over. So it's kind of like an incomplete slate of homework, if that's what you call it.
Okay. Thanks.
Hang on, I have one. I have one question. Do we have any rough idea what the fees involved in getting this done are?
In getting it done?
Yeah, I mean, What do
You
we
mean
look-
what my fees are?
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, I guess.
Calvert
I
Street.
have said it all the way back to my beginning in Ocean Pines. Now, you all understand that paying legal fees is the American way. Having said that, if I had to guess, I would say that there's two phases. Number one, the first phase would be to get a record extract of the land records to find out what liens are there. That is probably, for argument, and this is just totally off the top of my head, that's probably a $750 expense. I then get the abstracts of the land records. I would then contact the lenders and make the proposition that they ought to release these worthless liens. That's another 2 hours, 3 hours. And then Pete Cosby and I would fashion a complaint for declaratory judgment to be filed in circuit court, and that would be in the neighborhood of $3,000 probably. So we're talking, we're not talking about a huge amount of money, if things go well.
No, I know.
And I'm presuming, frankly, even though I know where to find him, or I think I do, he would not, Mr. Meinhardt that is, would not respond, and therefore we would have an uncontested declaratory judgment issue. If for some reason he surfaced, then, we're in court.
Well, I wasn't intending to negotiate.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's not a huge number.
That's fine. Thank you.
So it's a cleanup. You're basically cleaning up his mess is what you're doing.
Right. And yeah.
I just wanted to point out that the Point Homeowners Association is fully willing to do our part financially to whatever, that's why Pete is working
Pete
with
and I
us.
would work together.
So that, we fully intend it's not going to be all on you, Paul. We understand that there are costs.
You're paying for Pete.
I'm paying for Pete, right.
Right.
Or any other court costs.
Right.
We
Okay.
share any court costs,
That's fair.
et cetera.
Thank you.
I make a motion that we allow Mr. Moore to go ahead and start this process to clean up this mess. I mean, this section 17, I didn't realize that went all back to Bell. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not
you're-
hanging out there. That it's got
We- Sure, you're going to do some preliminary investigation and then bring a report forward to the board.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of the communications that I was having with the homeowners association down there and with Joe, and bringing this to the fore so we can get this cleaned up. So, all those in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
And just two editorial comments, if I may. I would have had this done, as I told you, Tom, I would have had it done a long time ago in the Dave Ferguson era, because I said, Ferguson, if you want to get their attention down there, no disrespect to Section 17, I said, just tell them that they're not members of Ocean Pines, and the only thing they can do is use our street between Section 17 and the South Gate to get in and out. He said, you're crazy. You're crazy. It's going to cost us too much money. So he wimped out on me. And then one last thing, because this was a true story. We had to go all the way to the chairman of the Board of Governors of the United States Postal Service to get this thing overruled, because Meinhardt had gone to some regional postmaster in Baltimore who had agreed, notwithstanding the fact that we didn't want it, meaning the association, that they were going to get it. So we went to the chairman of the Board of Governors of the Postal Service, and when Mr. Meinhardt's lawyer found out that we had won up, he said, I demand to know where we appeal that decision. And I thought for a moment, and I said, the President of the United States.
Good. Okay, thank you. Board parliamentarian replacement, Sharon.
Yes, with the resignation of a board member, Mr. Sachursky, who was our parliamentarian, and came up to have that position placed. And we have asked Jeff if he would be willing to accept that position since you accepted his seat. And we've asked if you would be able to do that.
I said I would, with the understanding that as I sit here today, I don't know much about Robert's rules. So you're going to have to cut me a little slack while I learn. But I will.
I didn't either when I got it. I had Robert's rules for dummies.
Yeah, no, I will.
So I guess we need to have a motion to appoint him, and I would like to make a motion that Jeff never is appointed as our parliamentarian.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. You can vote no, Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
It's your job. Thank you.
Motion to
extend.
Mr. President. I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but where are we on the agenda?
We're down to motion to extend terms of 3 members.
Okay, after we finish that, I have something I'd like to address.
Sure.
Okay.
Motion to extend terms of 3 members.
I'm going to read the motion from Marty Clark since he is not present. It says that the following motion is respectfully submitted by Margaret Clark for purposes of consideration by the board at the board meeting as intended to be voted on at this meeting. Motion. I move that the board of directors approve the following term extensions for the following members of our Communications Advisory Committee. Don Claggett from January 23rd, 2014 to September 23rd, 2014, which is a term of 6 months. Don Lafont from January 23rd, 2014 to 9/23rd, 2014 for 8 months. And Margaret Long from January 23rd, 2014 to November 23rd, 2014 for 10 months. Is there a section?
Can we make the correction that Sharon said 9/23 for the Don Claggett and 7/23? You read the
Don
section.
Claggett, I'm sorry, Don Claggett is 7/23, Don Lafont is 9. Sorry if I wasn't clear.
I have a
Is there a
second on
second?
this before discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, second.
Okay, for discussion, and this is again Marty's memo. As I stated in my memorandum of February 24th, the gut of this committee is basically my fault. I was provided information when I first became the liaison back in September of 2012, which had the terms of these members wrong. After the incorrect terms were listed on the 2013 annual report, Michelle recognized the mistake and sent me an email with the correct dates, which I promptly filed. Our Communications Advisory Committee has been one of the most effective committees. They have, with the help of the staff, been the driving force behind a very successful yearly health fair. They have assisted our public relations department to help put together valuable focus groups and teaching seminars. Now, that's the end of Marty's report. Just as a tagline for myself for discussion, the new chairperson of this committee is Bernie Flax, and she came into a committee that really wasn't existent. There was nobody on there for the confusion of the dates. We do have on the agenda appointment of 1 new member for this, and this is just just to help get a committee established with a 6-month, 8-month, 10 exception for these 3 meetings. So that's, as I understand, the clarification.
I'll second the motion.
It's already been seconded.
I already did.
It's already been seconded. The issue here is to give a transition period so that she has some carryover members so she can build the committee back up. In all deference to the comments Joe made earlier, and I take them to heart. This is not something you do lightly, in my opinion, but at the same time, she's got to have somebody to work with. And some transition period, to me, makes some sense. That's my...
I do have a question. So if these 3 terms are not extended, it would be her and one
And
other
the one
person?
member that we're asked to appoint today is, as I understand, Michelle, is there anybody else we're missing? I think there may be one other person on the committee. Yeah.
It is a full committee. So basically what we're saying is, unfortunately, due to whatever circumstances, Marty took the committee over, documentation was incorrect, and this did not get picked up in time. Correct.
That's how I understand.
Any other questions?
I have one more. Since I was the person who actually proposed Dave Blazer's extension to the Environmental Committee and it was denied, what is the answer to the Environmental Committee? They say, how come you said yes to them? You said because they'll call me.
And if I can chime in on that, if I recall at the time, we were told that anyone could attend committee meetings. So if Mr. Blazer wanted to continue to attend, he just would not be appointed as a committee member.
And had to wait his year.
And had to wait his year to come back.
I think this was a case of a situation where there just weren't enough members to make this come back.
But now we're being, that's why I asked the question. Now we're being, they're all other members.
I thought there was just one other member. Michelle, do you have the list?
But the question, I don't believe the action's ever been taken to do the extension, and Dan did put a persuasive argument, and I know he had majority vote, if not everyone voted, not to extend Mr. Blazer, who has done a phenomenal job for the community. So now we're going to turn around and because there was a mistake made somewhere, we're going to make a different decision?
Well, I think the position that these three folks could attend the meetings and participate, as Dave Blazer could have done.
And he did.
And he did.
Yeah,
Again, this was putting forth the argument for it. There's also a very solid argument against this as well. That is, this is precedent setting. Not sure it's the right. You got to present both sides. Since Marty isn't here, you got to present both sides of the issue. The real key is who's left on this committee.
Yeah.
That's really going to be the key.
But I know Suzanne Braca, I think they had 7 people. Great.
So that would be 4, including the chair and the new person coming on.
I guess the question would be, it wouldn't matter if it was 1, 2, 3, 4, or 6. The fact of the matter is, you got to make a decision whether the board's going to support extending terms when it hasn't been done in the past, regardless of how many are on there now. That's really the decision, not how many are on there now. It's, are we going to make a decision as a board to go contrary to the board decision?
But it's been so long, they may be getting close to their year that they would have to take off anyway.
No, they were. They were not allowed to re-up. They were done with their 6 years.
Right.
So they're close to being
January
through their
23rd.
year that they can.
That's what I'm saying. All they have to wait is another year. So it's been so long. They may be close to a year where they can get back on as a full member, not 6 months.
I mean,
I
disagreed with the Dave Blazer decision because I think it's written that can do that. If we have someone of that caliber, you don't want to lose their expertise off that committee.
I agree with you.
But that's why we all sit up here and we vote.
That being said, I agree with your comment. We have a brand new chairperson here that needs some support.
Well,
okay.
Well, let me just put this forth. When Dave Blazer wasn't approved, we had no chairperson.
Okay.
It took a year for the environmental committee to find a chairperson. So they were without a chairperson. So there are both sides to the argument.
Both sides of the argument, and just hold on. Anybody else?
Well, in other words,
move your mic back, Jackson.
In other words, a positive decision would change the direction of this board in terms of past decisions. Is that what I'm hearing? In other words, this is an exception to the stare decisis as to what we've done in the past. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Do we routinely do that, Joe? I mean, bylaws are bylaws and rules are rules. Is that something that we just make exceptions for?
Well, that's not my call, Jack. That's a board decision. I mean, it is, from what I'm hearing, and I wasn't aware from what I'm hearing, it has not occurred before.
Right.
But that does not mean that you all don't have the right to change one of the words. I take it it's an informal.
Formal than that. Let me call on Jim.
Yeah.
Because I think it's much more
It
formal
is.
than that.
I don't have my copy of C01 here. Probably ought to start bringing the entire resolution.
You really should.
Instead of some other stuff that I did bring. I think back to C01, there is an explicit authorization, once you hit the 6-year term limit, the board to extend a period of a committee member for a stated period of time. Not getting into the merits or demerits of the Dave Glazer decision, you still have that authorization. Go back up to C01 to see that. It's specifically there.
Right, and that is where the discussion from environmental came, was C01 said. And their argument was, why do we have that in here if we're not?
I'll make a quick.
Sure.
I think the board made a mistake not reading. In my blunt way, I'll say I think Sikorsky sold the rest of the board, those who voted with him, Bill Goods. We have a problem getting people to be on committees. So we have people who have been on committees and their terms may be up for 6 years is up. Unless there's somebody beating down the door to take their place and they want an extension, I think we ought to give it to them. I didn't bring this up to say you should not extend it. I just wanted to point out the hypocrisy of getting rid of Glazer and then extending these people. So, inconsistent, not hypocrisy. Whatever it is.
Unfortunately, Joe, you made a very strong argument against the argument you're making right now. So, you did.
No, I'm saying if these people want to stay on, nobody beating around the board, take their place, reappoint them.
From a pure procedural issue, listening to Jim and understanding the 3-2-1, reality is that rules are 6 years, you have to take a year off. That doesn't mean that this board has to pass this. We could pass this and ask these folks to attend the meeting and be helpful as associate members. There's nothing that says we can't do that. So I just put that out there, that if we vote this down, that doesn't mean this board is saying to these 3 people, never come to another meeting. We would be simply saying, look, we just are not going to ignore the 1 year off guideline that was developed over a long time. It's been in rules here for a long time. And that we could procedurally vote down this motion and then take a motion to ask these 3 people to stay on as speakers, to attend the meetings and participate, not having voting rights. Procedurally, that's where we can stand. Yes?
I don't know whether this is helpful, but...
I hope so.
Well, it may be. In Article 10 of your bylaws, I just have to bring that file because the other thing was in there. It says that the Board of Directors, length of terms and removal for committee and advisory bodies under Article 10, Section 10.03 says the Board of Directors shall establish term lengths to provide for an appropriate balance between continuity of expression and opportunity for others to serve their community. All members serve at the pleasure of the board and may be removed by the board with or without cause at any time. The board shall ascertain from time to time whether all committee and ad hoc advisory bodies are functioning and fulfilling their assigned responsibilities. So Jim's right. I think it depends on what your resolution said, whether it's mandatory under the terms. This says you shall establish term lengths, but I don't know whether your term lengths that you established were flexible.
As I read them, there's 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, year off.
No. Look at what follows.
I
actually have CO1 in front of me.
Somebody read it.
This is under terms of members. There's first term, second term, third term. Then there's item 4, subsequent term. Again, it's very small. Bear with me. Notwithstanding the term. You have it?
Yes. I've been carrying this around since the day of Blazer.
Why don't you read it? Why am I looking it up?
Subsequent terms, notwithstanding the term limit provisions above, the right for a majority vote of the entire board, request a committee member to continue to serve on a committee for a specified period of time.
Yeah.
So my only comment about this is, if we're going to continually run into this problem, then we need to either do this or get it out of here, because it's a bone of contention if we're not going to utilize it. Because that's the committee members are saying, why is it in there? It can't. It's its purpose if we don't.
Thank you for reading that.
You're welcome.
Any more comments, questions? Obviously, procedurally, as the monitors and the overseers of this activity, we accidentally allowed this to happen, so we need to fix it.
Tom, can I real quick?
They will have it only
Without this. So there'll still be a good functioning committee.
I think we could debate this for hours on end.
I call the question.
I'm going to call the question on this. All those in favor of the motion which would extend these members' terms on the committee, all those in favor? 2, 3. Those opposed? 2, 3. The motion does not pass. Ayes?
Who voted against it?
I did, yes.
We've got 5 people left.
No, I didn't.
I would strongly recommend and thank, and I would hope that Dawn and Margaret would continue to help with this committee as an associate member.
And add one thing. Can you make sure that those know when they are available? They have back available. And make it.
Okay, Jack, we didn't add something to the agenda, but what do you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the audience here and to this board. I think we all know Bob Thompson had a meeting of a group of volunteers who addressed the drainage situation in our community, and even though we were specific to a certain geographic area, the overall gist of that meeting was that we're going to look at ocean pines in general. So I took some copious notes, and I'd like to pass them out to the board. And in the form of open communication and open governance, which we're always in favor of, I have copies here for the press, and you're welcome to take them, or members of the audience and read through it. And I'd like to compliment Bob Thompson for conducting a very, very useful meeting. And I think that it's going to provide benefit in the future, don't you, Bob?
I do. I do. Well, no, the only thing I want to make sure that everyone's aware of the fact, these are notes that were taken but have not been circulated for the committee to approve or not approve or...
Well, they were circulated to Bob Thompson. They were circulated to Bob Thompson.
CPI we removed from the agenda. Okay, we have a group of appointments here. No objection. I will take them together. We have Gina Breister to the Aquatics Committee for a third term. Dennis Hudson to the Comprehensive Plan Committee for first term. Elaine Brady to the Communications Committee for the first term, and Judy Butler to the Elections Committee for a second. Any objection to any of those appointments?
Is that Elaine Brady? Oh, yeah, from.
Any objections to the? Therefore, they are all approved. Thank you very much. Media questions? Who wants to go twice? All for adjournment.
All for adjournment.
Second. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Here's my memo.
Huh?